I am very happy to be in the Midwest because I actually grew up in Minnesota. I lived there till I was a teenager. This is my family on the farm where my Norwegian grandfather, who immigrated, came to settle in Kenyon, Minnesota. I'm the baby in the picture. And that's my grandmother. Of course, everyone wears a hat on a dairy farm. Or everyone's grandmother did. But anyway, I grew up there, ended up in Maine in the early 1970s when I was a teenager. I came with my boyfriend. We had a copy of Helen and Scott Nearing's Living the Good Life, and we were going to be living on the land and living sustainably. Well, of course, we didn't know anything really about it, and I had the great good fortune of being a farm apprentice. I went to College of the Atlantic, and there I am doing the work-study program, running the composting system. I was lucky enough to have Elliot Coleman as my teacher in college, so I learned from the best. And really, so basically 40 years and plus I've been farming, most of it on an island off the coast of Maine. So this is where I live. It's about 12 miles by ferry. My first farm, we had 2 acres under cultivation. We raised 3 milking cows, 100 chickens. I raised 3 kids, a pig a year, and a lot of sheep. My first value-added business was turning the sheep's wool into yarn and selling knitting kits and hand-knit sweaters basically around the country. Like a lot of you, I was interested in being involved in small-town politics. I ran for the tax assessor in my town because it was the one job nobody else wanted. I thought I could get elected, and I did. Eventually, 20 years later, I worked my way up to the school board. And then in the 1990s, I became a state senator. Served on the Ag Committee back in the 90s when we talked about GMOs or irradiated food, bovine growth hormone, but you could just barely get a hearing. Nothing really ever came to the floor, and it was all a marginalized discussion. Far cry from being in politics today. Since then, fast forward, I'm on another farm. We've been renovating a farm for the last 10 years. We also renovated a 100-year-old this is still me in the yarn business. Get through that. We renovated a 100-year-old inn, also in our island, that hadn't been occupied for several years. So we now run a 9-room inn. We started a restaurant and then have spent 10 years bringing a farm back to life that was originally settled in 1764, but hadn't been farmed for decades. So we've cut a lot of trees, cleared a lot of pasture, and done a lot of things in the last 10 years. In the last decade, we've grown a variety of animals, goats, dairy cows, 30 pigs every year, chickens. We cultivate under 2 acres very intensively. We grow vegetables. We grow them year-round, and they're certified organic. We sell them through our own farm stand. We are our best customer for our own seasonal restaurant. And then twice a week or once or twice a week in the summer, we open up our barn, and we serve about 100 people a meal in the barn after they've taken a tour of our farm. So they get a chance to see where it all grows, hear from the farmers about what we grow, and hear about how we made the food. I'll just get through these. Now, of course, it doesn't look like this there right now, just like it doesn't look like that. It looks a lot more like this. And we do grow all winter long. We have 4 hoop houses and 3 heated greenhouses heated by wood from our farm, where we also grow food. I couldn't do this by myself. Not surprising. I'm in Washington all week. I'm lucky enough to have 2 daughters who live on the island, one who manages our businesses, but I also depend on our farmers, our wonderful farm managers, and our farm apprentices. I'm lucky enough, our farm manager is here, and some of our previous farm managers are here, one of whom has gone off to work at Johnny's Selected Seed. But this is Brendan. You may have seen him in some of the workshops with Liesel, who managed the farm. This is Brendan holding a tomato. One of our biggest contests every year is beating Elliot Coleman to the first tomato of the season. It's important to us. I don't want you to think they just get their photos taken all the time. This is last week, grafting tomatoes. We have a CSA in the winter, and I also sell to the local food co-op and some restaurants near our community. Now, I do have a job. As I mentioned, I'm a member of Congress. I've served on the Agriculture Committee. I'm currently on the Agriculture Appropriations Committee. And I've been there about 10 years. I'm really here. I came to this conference to listen to all of you, and that's why I've been here. I'm here fighting for the same things that I think most of the people in this room are, and unlike a lot of talks that I give, I haven't had to convince a person here about why it's the right thing to be doing. Some of the things that I fight for, the idea that every person should have access to healthy food regardless of their income. I don't want to tell you, but I don't really even have time for applause lines, so. But I know we agree, and I'm happy we're on the same side. I believe everybody should not only have access to food, but organic farming and food is obviously the right thing to do. It's better for the health of individuals. It's better for the health of our farmers. It's obviously better for our environments. I think most of you know we're facing a crisis environmentally, and organic matter in the soil is the best way to sequester carbon, and we could make a lot of difference if we had a lot more organic farming. It's better for our environment overall. Not using chemicals, toxic chemicals, is better for our environment, better for our bodies. So there's a lot to be fighting for. On the Agricultural Appropriations Committee, we get to work on the budget every year, so I'm constantly fighting for many of the USDA programs that some of you have benefited from or would like to have more access to out there. I'm also working on my second farm bill. I tried to insert a lot into the first round while I was there, and we're doing it again as much as we can this time. H.R. 2436 is my Organic Agriculture Research Act, which of course is more agricultural research. We need a lot more dollars invested there. H.R. 3941 is our Local Farms Act, and that's our Farm Bill Marker Act, which is how we try to move things into the Farm Bill. It has things like level funding of cost share, and an important component we've added this year around food as medicine, our produce prescription program, because we believe and understand what you eat makes a huge difference in your health. But mostly I fight for those fundamental changes that I think all of you care about. Things like the distance that our food travels, the fact that we can no longer access food locally as well as we used to, trying to change a food system that's been going in the wrong direction. We have one guideline for the foods that you should eat, much more fruits and vegetables. And then, of course, we have a whole different set of policies around the subsidies and crop insurance we give to many of the wrong things that have gone in the wrong direction on our own human health. We're still recovering from a lot of bad policy. I think all of us remember plant, fence row to fence row, get bigger, get out. And since the 1970s, we've been moving in the wrong direction. Consolidated, more big agriculture, demise of family farms, making it harder to get local food. I have no idea how this new administration will fare. I just realized that's Tim Wallace in the background. Many of you are lucky enough to be represented by Tim. I also work closely with Ron Kind, who's been such a great fighter on crop subsidies and, of course, cares deeply about this community and dairy and organic farming. But this administration has already proposed a lot of budget cuts. It did last year. We're not happy about them, but it is my job to be there every day, pushing back against bad ideas like the SNAP boxes or cutting SNAP, and fighting for good ones, protecting organic integrity, getting more farmers and a greater supply so we aren't so dependent on food coming into the country to supply what consumers want today. But let me just wrap it up by saying I think the reason so many of us are here and across the country, this eating habit in our country and the interest in organic food has been changing so much is because food is fundamental. It's what keeps us alive every day. It's critical. It's the most important experience in our life, and everyone wants good, healthy food and access to it. For so many of us who run farms or restaurants, that's why we do the things we are. That's why we try to create the delicious food that we do. And often we're trying to do it in an environment where people can share that food together in wonderful places that bring us back into the experience and are reminded that without farms, we don't have food. Food shouldn't be scary places where workers are exposed to danger, where land and animals are mistreated, where unhealthy conditions create unhealthy food. In fact, farms should be wonderful places where we all want to live, work, and raise our families. Thank you very much.